Good morning to you, folks. Good morning. Good to see you. What we're going to cover today is something that is very seldom talked about, but could go further than almost anything I've talked about all year. And will turn into more opportunity for you than almost anything that I've covered all year long. And people have been trying to get me to talk about this for a while. And I kept saying it's too small of a subject. Like I don't think it's a big enough subject to tackle, right? And then the more I started to think about it, I started thinking about my own life of when I haven't made decisions I needed to make, when I haven't made a phone call I needed to make, when I haven't opened a door I needed to open, when I haven't made a business decision, when I haven't made an investment, when I haven't hired another employee. Anything that was related to my expansion all came back to one thing. I didn't have enough courage to do it. Okay, will you guys get the strobe light over there, please? Now, everybody understand what I'm saying? Is that I didn't have the guts and the courage to do something I needed to do. And sometimes it's calling somebody that needs to be called, that you know needs to be called, that you don't want to call. Right? Sometimes it's stepping up and doing something you are scared to death to do, but it is the right thing for you to do. Everybody with me? And these decisions are either going to help you expand your business or your business is going to stay where it's at because of these decisions. So I finally relented to all the people that were asking me, and today we're going to break down this concept of courage and how courage turns into money. Now you think about people, and I'm going to give you some real life examples of people here in Murfreesboro that I have worked with that have tremendous amounts of courage. A lot more courage than I've had. And when they would make some business decisions, it scared me to death. I'm like, do you need to think about it? Do we need to pray about it? Do we need to, right? But they would make them. And then I would see 3 or 4 years later the expansion of their decision. And I would remember, well, 4 years ago they made that decision to do this, right? Now I think I've told you this, is I bought a piece of land over here for $500,000 in Victory Station. I drew up the Greatness Factory. I spent $90,000 on the plans for the Greatness Factory, and I have not built that Greatness Factory. Now, you say, why have you not done that? You spent $90,000 on the plans. The plans are 89 pages long. I took it to the city of Murfreesboro. They said it is the most progressive building anybody has ever tried to build in Rutherford County. It said it looks different than any other building. They wouldn't even let me pass it. They kept wanting me to conform. We want the building to look like all the other buildings. And I'm like, that defeats the purpose of what I'm trying to do. Like I'm trying to build a building that people go, dang, you got to go over to that Greatness Factory, right? You got to go over to the Greatness Factory. But to build a building like that, you can go cheap and build it and make it look like everybody else's building, or you can go all out and build it. Does that make sense? And if you go all out and build it, now you're building per square foot, $300 or $400 a square foot because of all the dimensions and features. Then the bank says it want to appraise. So then you got to make a decision. Do you want to go out and raise investor money, and do you want to do it? Is Murfreesboro progressive enough for me to do it here, or do I need to do it in Nashville? Everybody understand what I'm saying? All of these decisions take what? Guts. But let's fast forward 20, 30 years from now, and that was a vision I feel like God gave me, build a Greatness Factory. Not just one, but in cities around the country. Let's say 30 years go by and I don't build a Greatness Factory. What kind of regret will I have over not building something because I didn't have enough courage to do it? Everybody understand what I'm saying with this? That's the kind of thinking I want you thinking about. Okay? I could build a building like everybody else is in Murfreesboro. I could do it as cheap as I possibly could do it. But it defeats what I'm trying to do, which is build something that is great. It's not called the mediocre factory or the complacency factory or the average factory. So you see the rub here. Now, I've sat on those plans for 2.5, 3 years, and I went out and raised, I had like $800,000 or $900,000 raised of people who committed money to pay the whole down payment on the building, right? Like I could go out and raise the money today. I could raise all $3.5 million to build it. But the question is, what stops me? There's something that's prohibiting me from taking action on that. Okay? Now that's how I want you thinking today, because when you think about this concept of courage, to make these big bold moves versus stay in a safe place. Okay? Because I'm a conservative by nature. My risk tolerance is probably medium. You may have a very high risk tolerance. How many of you know a person's got a very high risk tolerance? Okay, yeah, y'all have breakfast with one every morning, right? John Floyd. Okay, he's one of the people I'm going to talk about today because his risk tolerance is way higher than mine. He scared me to death when I worked with him. Not because of what he did, but because he had the guts and courage to do things that I would have never done. Now fast forward 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years later, and Chase, I think he's doing pretty good now, isn't he? Worked out pretty good. Worked out pretty good, okay? Now, so Chris, Garrett, what we're talking about today is this concept of muscling up enough courage to do things we don't want to do. And I'm going to show you how much money this is actually costing your business. Because I think when you don't make courageous moves, there is no room for expansion. There is no room for growth. So when you break it down, this is the concept of courage. Courage, the ability to do something that frightens you. The ability to do something that frightens you. I specifically like the second definition, which is the willingness to confront uncertainty. Okay, the willingness to confront uncertainty. Now, last week I was on the phone with Marshall Sylver. Marshall Sylver is considered the #1 hypnotist in the world. And he has made over $200 million in Las Vegas with the top hypnotic show in the world. So I was on the phone with Marshall because he has become a master at getting people to want something that they don't even know they're being sold. Now I want you to listen to what I just said. He has become a master at subconsciously imprinting things in people's minds to increase their wantingness. Means when he's selling you, but you don't even know he's selling you. The way he says it and what he says convinces you that you need to take action on it. So right in the middle of the conversation, I stopped and I said, "Are you trying to hypnotize me right now? Are you trying to hypnotize me? Because I was trying to get him to come to the lodge and do an event here. He was trying to get me to go to California and do an event there. Does that make sense? So he kept suggesting things during our talk about how it would be better if I came to California and how much more money could be made if I came to California, right? And so I just said, man, don't try to hypnotize me right now. Like if you're trying to do it, I'm trying to pick up on if you're trying to do it or not, right? Now, do you know that some of the top people in the world are now hiring Marshall Sylver when they speak on stages because they don't want to pitch their services hard because they think they'll turn off to the crowd, so they're hiring him to teach them how to sell from the stage without selling. Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, is one of those people that hired him. Belfort's commanding $50,000 to speak, and because he's charging $50,000 to speak, he's hesitant to sell from the stage, his coaching program, so he hires Marshall Sylver and he says, teach me how to sell this without selling it, without pitching it. Because Sylver knows how to increase a person's wantingness. Now, would that be valuable for a salesperson to know, yes or no? Absolutely, which is why he's in demand. But here's what he said to me. He said, Coach, the #1 thing people want to know is they want certainty. The #1 thing they want to know is it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. It's all going to work out. Now, you and I both know that it's hard to sell certainty, right or wrong. But when you have a lot of courage and you have a lot of confidence, can you convince other people that you're pretty certain, yes or no? And at the end of the day, that's really what I think you're selling, is you're selling certainty. You're selling with me, and in my hands, your future is going to be in a better place. Out of all the people you could choose out there, I'm the #1 person that you could choose. Because I am so certain that this is going to work because of the number of times that I've done it. Everybody see that? So we just rented a condo down at 505, and 505 is the tallest building in Nashville now. Tony Giarratana, which is kind of the John Floyd or Donald Trump of Nashville, built Encore, he built Viridian, he built the Cumberland, and now he built 505, which is on Church Street, and it's the tallest building. It looks back on downtown Nashville, on Broadway, over the river. It's gorgeous. And we got that condo because with it comes all the amenities, because I'm going to be opening up the Nashville market in January, meaning I'm going to host events there, and I was looking for meeting space. All the meeting space was ridiculous for 2 or 3 hours. I said, so I started thinking, how can I get creative? Oh, well, I could have a condo at 505. With the condo, I also get all the meeting amenities, which are out of this world, okay? So I went down on Saturday, and I took Ella Grace down there, because I wanted to take Ella Grace down there and show her what a big city looks like. I said, I want to take her down to Nashville. She's 7 years old. I said, we talked about it. We pulled it up on the internet. And I said, I'm going to take you down and show you the tallest building in Nashville. And then we're going to go to lunch across the street at Puckett's, and I'm going to ask you, what's the difference between Nashville and Murfreesboro? And so I take her down to Nashville, to the big city, and the first thing she says, I said, what's the biggest difference between these two places? She says, there's a lot more cars, Daddy. And the buildings are taller, Daddy. And there seems to be a lot going on, Daddy, right? But I want to show her that, because I didn't see big cities when I was 7, right? And I go to this condo, and it's beautiful. They take me up to the 38th floor. Condo with big old glass windows, looking back over Broadway, the Cumberland River. Like it is, they are $1 million views. You understand what I'm saying? And this little real estate agent walks around, and he answers my questions about the place, and shows me all the place, and here's the bedroom, and here's the bathroom, and here's this, okay? And then I said, I'll take it. I pull out my checkbook, and I said, I wrote a check for $2,800. That's how much the rent cost. And I said, here's my first month's deposit. I'd like to take this condo right here. I don't want anybody else to get it, okay? And he goes, well, I don't think we can take a check, and you got to go online, and we got to go through we got to go through to make sure you're qualified, and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm trying to give you $3,000. Take it, and tell me that nobody else is going to get it. And he would not take it. He said, well, another agent's going to send you the link. Now, why is that a problem? So now I go home. It's Saturday. Now I start talking to my wife, Natalie. Is this a good decision? Is it not a good decision? Should we really spend $36,000 down there? Can I make my money back? Can we get events? What are we going to do about the parking? See, that one little thing caused me to go from completely certain, here's my check for $3,000, within 4 or 5 hours to, I don't know. Everybody see that? How fast can a person go from certain to uncertain? In seconds. Literally I've had people tell me, I talked to people yesterday on the phone, they said, I'm in, send me the agreement right now. I'm going to be in your coaching program tonight. Okay? And I'm telling you, the next thing I do is send them a video, then I send them a text message, then I have my team call them, and we keep going until we have that agreement. Why? Because I know they can tell me that in 1 second and the very next second change their mind. Everybody with me? How should that real estate agent have been selling me that condo? Dylan, what should he have been saying to increase my certainty? What could he have said to increase my certainty? Versus here's the bathroom, and here's the gym, and here's... What could he say? I want you to start thinking like this. How would you sell certainty?
Does he know that you're using it for the business purposes?
Yes. I told him I'd be doing one event, a minimum of one event per month down in the nice big meeting space. I told him I'd be doing private dinners down there because they got this beautiful wine cellar that has private, you can have private dinners. I said, man, I'm going to be using this. If I'm here, I'm using it. That's the whole reason I'm doing it. It's to make money, right? What could he have said?
So I want to show you, those places show you the capacity of those possible demonstration booths.
Nice.
The potential of that space.
There we go. See, what he should have said is, Coach, I could see you having a business meeting in here with 15 of the top business leaders in Nashville. And I can see you generating hundreds of thousands of dollars by using this room right here. And I can see your monster producer program in this big, nice building looking back over Nashville, right? And I can see you entertaining guests down here in Nashville. And I bet, Coach, you can pick up $1 million more next year by having this Nashville market. And then that little $36,000 seems like nothing. Does that make sense? That's how he should have been selling it to me. And Coach, look at this view. Out of all the views here, I think this is the best one. This is the best view in the whole place that you're buying right here. Everybody see that? Now, I'm telling you that because what people are looking for, notice the problem with courage. The courage is, I have an unwillingness to confront uncertainty. People who are courageous go into things thinking it may not work. And I'm going to give you an example of an ad we did last week on Thanksgiving that I'm going to ask you if it worked or it didn't work. I'm going to show you how much money we spent on it. I'm going to show you how much money we made back, and then I'm going to ask you a simple question. Do you think it worked or didn't work? Yes?
Would he been better off to have like an iPad right there just as you go and check and say, hey, let's go ahead and fill everything out. I'll fill it out. You tell me the information,
Yes.
and we'll do it right now.
Yes. Now, even if he said you got to qualify, I understand that people coming down there that may not be qualified to do that. I get that. But he could have still taken my deposit check and said, if you don't qualify, we'll give it back to you. Right? Like he was such an inexperienced salesperson that he really could have cost himself a sale. Now, why is that a problem? That particular condo's been on the market for 111 days. Why? It's in Nashville. It's in the hottest city in the world. It's at the coolest place in Nashville. Why would it be on the market for 111 days, right? And if you got somebody there who wants to buy it or who rent it, then rent it to them. Like, let's take action. So you got to get out of your brain. One mistake I see salespeople make, and I know that we have made, is assuming. Assuming it's going to happen. Assuming they're going to take action. When they tell you, I'm good, let's do it. You know, assuming. Take the assumption out of it. Because when it comes to courage, I'm going to show you something. When it comes to courage, you've heard me talk about last month, between stimulus and response is a space, right? Last month we talked about eliminating distractions. And I said between thinking and doing is a space, and in that space lies your ability to choose your response. Well, this is good to take a bigger space when you're angry. It's good to take a bigger space when you need time to think about a decision. When it comes to courage, this space ain't good. What do you need to do with this space when it comes to courage? Do it. You need to eliminate it. When you think it, you need to do it. Okay? Now, yesterday I was in the gym and I thought about a woman I coached 2 or 3 years ago at Reeve Sane. And she loved me coaching her, and I loved coaching her. We had a great relationship. And I'm thinking, why haven't I called on her to be in my coaching program? She's got her own business. She loved the coaching. I thought it, and then I did it. I just picked up the phone and called her. Hey, I've been thinking about you. Hey, I know I can help you. Hey, tell me a little bit about your business. And she said, I'm so glad you called. I'd love to be in there. I just didn't really know what was going on with it. So she committed to it just like that. Why? I thought it and I did it. Now, what if I said I thought it? Now I'm going to schedule a meeting with her. Now I'm going to talk about it. Now we got to go through this whole process. See, when it comes to courage, sometimes you need to think it and do what? Right then. Don't even second guess it. Just do it. So the second, look at, these are all synonyms of courage. Backbone, spine, spirit, grit, spunk, boldness, audacity. If I were describing you, would I use these words? You definitely don't want to be described as spineless, okay? Bold, audacity, backbone. Now, I like to tie courage and confidence together. To me, confidence is a knowing that you can create or manifest. I go into things thinking, I'm going to find a way to make this work. I'm going to figure out a way to turn a liability into an asset. We're going to find a way to make this work. That's my mindset, okay? And if I think I can turn any liability into any asset, then I do it. Like, do you know how many people looked at that lodge that I bought and wouldn't buy it? Why wouldn't they buy it, Chase?
Too far out.
Yeah. And they're thinking, I don't know if I could live here. I walked in and looked at it and said, man, I'm getting a steal. I'm getting 23 acres and this lodge, of which I can use to make hundreds of thousands of dollars for $1.3 million. Like, I feel like I'm stealing it from her. You know, when people fly in from other parts of the country, these retreats I'm doing, they come in from New York City and other parts, and they're like, what'd you buy this for? And I said, $1.3 million. They're like, what? They're like, this would be $10 million in New York City. This would be $4 million in Nashville. Like, you got all this for $1.3 million? And then I talk to other people, and they're like, oh, I can't believe you spent $1.3 million on that. You see the mindset here? I walked into that lodge and said, we can do something with this. This is a money maker right here, right? I'll take it. And here's the deal. I didn't even have to look at the whole lodge. I walked into the living room, and they said, do you want to see everything? You know what I said? Nope. The living room's enough for me. I know I can do something with this. Good, it's got bedrooms. We can sell those too, right? But my mindset is, if I see an opportunity and I think I can make money with it, I have the courage to go, I'm doing it. When other people may look at it and go, I ain't doing it. I got to think about it longer. I got to work through it, okay? So when you're thinking about this, here's everything that you need to be thinking about your business. Expansion has everything to do with confidence. Now, if you don't have courage, you'll never do any of these things right here. Okay? Spending money on marketing that you may never get back. Number 2, spending money on employees that may actually lose money for you. Spending money on new ideas and programs that may never work. Anybody ever done that before? Okay, sure. Now, let me ask you this. Did the program not work, or did you not work it? I'm on a new eating program, and today I got down to my ideal weight. My ideal weight was 175 pounds. That's my Floyd Mayweather weight. And I started 3 weeks ago at 191. I was 191 3 weeks ago. In my 3rd week, how many pounds is that, Burks? 16. I lost 16 pounds in 3 weeks on my plan. So today when I weighed in, I was like, dang, it says 175. Like, that's where I'm trying to get to. I'm there. Took me 3 weeks to get there. Why? By just following the plan. If I didn't follow the plan, right? Now, you say, well, you didn't need to lose a bunch of weight. My wife's like, I don't want to be married to a scrawny husband. But here's what I told her. It ain't as much about the weight. I just want to feel 100% good. Like I want my mind to be clear. And since I cut out things and stayed on the plan, you remember that movie Limitless? Where they took that little pill and he thought he could do everything? Like my mind feels like that. When you cut out the breads and sugars and you cut out things like that and you get to something and your confidence is really high and you feel good and you look good and your mind, more importantly, what's hard to sell to people is how your mind feels. It feels like you can do anything, man. Now, if I don't follow the plan, though, I don't get the results. Does that make sense? So sometimes we spend money on something and then we say what? Well, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because we didn't do it. We didn't work the plan, okay? Now, what about this? Spending money on hiring your first employee. If you don't have an employee yet or you got a few employees don't cost you money. Not having help costs you money. Would you agree with this, yes or no? Okay? Employees actually don't cost you money. Now, you're going to have some bad employees like everybody, and you're going to feel like you spent money and you didn't get that money back. That's just part of hiring a team. But actually, you need to get your mindset around these things don't cost you. It costs you not to do it. Like I tell people, the coaching's free. What's going to cost you is not having a good plan. What's going to cost you is not having a good explanation of service. What's going to cost you is not having a selling system. What's going to cost you is not having a follow-up. What's going to cost you is not knowing how to get referrals. Not having courage, that's going to cost you. So when you think about this, spending time and energy on opportunity that may materialize, spending time on customers that may never appreciate you. Let me let you in on a little secret. Not all them customers that you help change their life are going to appreciate you. Would you agree? They may never say thank you. So just because they don't say thank you, should you not have customer appreciation events? Right? Now, I had a business owner here in Rutherford County. I'm not going to tell you who it is because you would know him. And I worked with him, and I kept trying to get him to do things for his employees. I kept saying, why don't you do a company picnic, and why don't you do this, and why don't you have some entertainment, and why don't you, do some of these things with your employees? And here's what he said, okay? He was doing about $14 million a year. He's like, I'm not spending $1 on them people. He said, let me tell you why. One of them last week got drunk and wrecked one of our company trucks. One of them got drunk at my Christmas party, tore something up at my house. He went through his whole list of things, and he's like, I ain't spending $1. But here's what I'm doing. I'm giving them an opportunity to make a living. And don't ask me to spend $1 on any of this stuff, because I ain't doing it, Coach. I'm like, okay, I get it. Yeah, keep the booze away from them. They'd be all right, right? I'm like, are you supplying the booze? I'd be upset if you wrecked my company truck with mine, right? If you've been drinking all day or whatever, especially on the job. Now, here's my point. I want to give you a real life scenario on this concept. Katie, we're going to go back through this again. Okay, we did an ad last week. A funnel. So I hire a marketing person. She puts together a funnel. Like everybody says, you got to have a funnel. You got to push people to something. You got to do this. Like that's what everybody says. So we create a funnel. Hire a marketing person. She comes in and spends weeks and weeks and weeks putting a funnel together. The whole funnel is to drive people to purchase a $7 product. $7. It's to get my planner for $7. That's what the whole purpose of the funnel is. Everybody see that? And then if they buy the funnel, then it takes them to another page, and I explain the benefits of a monster producer, and then hopefully they'll take action on that. Now, Katie, tell them how much we spent on the ad. We spent $1,700 on this ad. Remember that. All right. How much money did we make back from that marketing funnel? Less than $100. So we spent $1,700 and we made $100 on this particular ad. After weeks and weeks of putting it together, having a full-time employee work on it. Now, how many impressions did we get on the ad? And tell them what impressions means. Okay, so what did I pay $1,700 for, Burks? That's right. So $1,700, 52,000 people watch my commercial. That's really what happened. Everybody see that? Now let me ask you this question. Did I waste the money or did I invest the money? Everybody see that? You know what my first response was? $100. We spent 3 weeks on an ad with a full-time employee for $100 freaking dollars? That was my first response. I'm like, you need to give me some more data here for me to feel good about this. And the data is, well, 72,000 people saw it. 50-something thousand people watched the whole video. Now, how does that turn into money? Okay? See, it's hard. This is the problem. We don't have courage because we think $1 in, we should get what back? That's right. Return on investment, Charlie says we should put $1 in and get $3 to $5, $6, $10 back. That's how we've been trained, right? What about if we take a different model and we say, what is return on objective? If my objective is to become known, my objective is to become famous, my objective is to be the #1 guy in the world, my objective is this, then would 50 more thousand people knowing who I am help that, yes or no? Now, we signed a car dealership this week because, you know, I spend most of my time not here in Murfreesboro, but out in the world. So this week I was in St. Louis, I was in Dallas, Texas. Tomorrow I'm going to New Orleans, Louisiana. And so most of my customer base is all over the world. You follow what I'm saying? Like there's times I'm here, I'm not in this office for 30 or 40 days. And the business is still running because I'm out on the road coaching people. Well, we signed this car dealership, and I've never signed a car dealership in all my years of coaching. Right? But we get a call one day from a GM at one of the most successful stores in Dallas, and he says, we're interested in Coach Burt being our coach. Okay? And so we end up working out a deal. Now I'm going to Dallas. Now I'm coaching their people, and we kicked off the contract this week. Okay? Now I asked him, where did you find me? He said, Coach, I don't know. He said, somehow one of your videos popped up, and I watched it, and I liked it. And I said, this is different than all the other car salesmen in the world. And our people need to hear what you're saying versus what we've been hearing. And so then that prompted me to go to YouTube and watch more videos. Then I had my wife watch your videos. Then I had my daughter watch your videos on confidence. Now, let me ask you a question. Could that video that we spent, okay, that's I think a $54,000 contract, could that video for $1,700 made us $54,000, yes or no? Okay, now, how many people would not spend money on the $1,700? Because the way they're thinking. It takes courage, man. It takes courage. So I want to stop right now, and I want you to talk at your table, and I want you to say, if there's an area up here I have been non-courageous in, okay, and I'm going to tell you a story in a second of how I didn't call a dude for 10 years, and I called a dude this year, and he showed me something that I needed to know 10 years ago. When I had the thought, Chris, 10 years ago to call him. He knew something I didn't know, but I didn't call him. It just kept coming up. You need to call that dude. You need to call that dude. He knows something. You need to call that dude. I never did call him. Then one day, I said, I'm calling him. Call his office, schedule a meeting, spend 90 minutes with him, and in 90 minutes he told me everything I need to know. Why didn't I call him? What was I thinking? Fear. Maybe I don't get his attention. Maybe he don't answer the phone. Maybe he won't spend time with me. Maybe he don't know who I am. Maybe he'll reject me. Maybe he won't want to help me. 10 years, I didn't call the dude. I called him, and in 90 minutes, he explains everything I need to know. Gives me the whole formula on what he did. Okay? Take a second right now. Tell the people at your table, where is this getting you? What decisions are you not making because you don't have enough courage to take action on it? Is it marketing? Is it advertising? Is it customers? Is it staff? Is it new markets? What is it that is holding you back from making some of these decisions to grow? Okay? Take a second right now and talk through that. How many of you think there's areas that courage has cost you some? Yeah, I know it's cost me. Just from not doing things I should have been doing. Being scared to death. Probably took me 3 or 4 or 5 years to hire my first employee. Because I actually thought, man, that's taking money out of my pocket. Okay? I'm like, I don't need to do this. Okay? Chris, what did you guys come up with?
He had a good one. He talked about, I'll let him tell it. Go ahead.
Just the courage to make staff changes.
Yep.
You know, maybe if your staff is okay, but could be better.
That's right.
Just the courage
That's
to
right.
take that next step.
That's right. And so what's the overriding factor there? That's a tough one. I'm a very compassionate person. I give people a lot of chances. If they just show me any kind of effort, I give them more than 9 lives, typically. And some people said that's a flaw that I have, that I see the good in people so badly that even when they really screw up, I still hang in there with them. On some days it's a positive, on some days it's a negative, right? Because sometimes you got to ask yourself, like I think about Alabama. It's unheard of that Alabama loses 2 football games in a season, right? Somebody is going to get fired at Alabama. It's not going to be Nick Saban, but somebody's going to get fired. Would y'all agree with this? Yes or no? Because Saban's rule is what is in the best interest of the organization, not what's in the best interest of you. We have given you an opportunity to coach one of the greatest places in the world. We're paying you a lot of money to perform. If you don't perform, then you will get fired, right? So, and I'm telling you, somebody's going to get fired, okay?
We had it this past year where we had a loan officer in our state that hired a junior, taught the junior, worked with that junior loan officer. Year and a half into it, that person just wasn't producing.
Yep.
But it was taking that other loan officer's time away, and we sat on it for months and
Yep.
months and months.
Yep.
Finally, we made that decision in last year.
Yep.
To go ahead and just part ways the right way. It was tough. That loan officer has had his biggest year ever this year
Yep, that's right.
because he didn't have that distraction. Our team has had the biggest year ever. No, short 2 people.
Yep,
Nothing against any of those, but it was the courage to make that decision. But it wasn't easy.
that's right.
Because you don't ever let anybody go. You want to make sure that you do it the right way. But
Yep.
it changed our whole dynamic.
Yep.
Just because we
That one part.
after
I know.
way too long sitting.
So it takes courage to do that. You know, on the break, Katie and I were talking while you guys were working. There's a tough conversation I got to have with one of our vendors, and I like him, man. I really like him, but I got to have the conversation because it ain't working, right? It just ain't working the way it's supposed to work, and it ain't fruitful the way it is, right? And it's like, man, I dread it. I don't want to do that, but for the benefit of the organization, I got to do it, man. Now, if you do what I do, you hire somebody to do that for you, which is what Katie does. Okay? And when I got to have a tough conversation, I'm like, Katie, you got to call them, okay? Because coach always wants to be the nice guy. I always want to be the good guy, okay? So when we have conflict, she has to deal with a lot of the conflict because I try to stay above. I try to stay out of the conflict because I want people to see me as a positive, motivating guy. Does that make sense? I don't want to get drugged into some of the things, just the messiness of business, just to be honest with you. Now, so when you're thinking about it, anybody else? Charlie, what'd you come up with?
Spending money on marketing.
Okay. All right, now, was that one for you too? Okay, so I used to think this exact same way. And then I started to study branding and marketing, and I began to understand the difference between branding and marketing. Branding is really about becoming known. Does that make sense? It's really about, I mean, think about it. It's like I see your name everywhere. You got to be somebody because you're doing things, and right? It's like, you know, the billboards cost what, $6,000? You know, or this costs a lot of money, and this, and you're looking at it going like, you know, I remember having a big billboard on I-24, and it was for my radio show, Change Your Life Radio, and my producer was Kix Brooks' producer, and I said, I'm going to get a billboard. She said, okay. She said, but the billboard ain't for anybody else, it's for you. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, people are going to see it, and that's going to make you feel good. And so people would tell me, oh, I see your billboard on I-24, it looks good. And I said, well, are you listening to the show? Oh, no, I've never listened to the radio show. But they saw the billboard. So, but it didn't mean it didn't work. They still, thousands and thousands of people saw a big picture of me every day. Does that make sense? Going to Nashville. So my point to you is for a long time I thought branding is really the money you spend to become known in the world. So when you're boosting videos to become known and they're seeing you over and over, or you're doing certain things, or you're having parties or events and you're becoming more known in the world, that's branding. Marketing is specific information to a specific group of people who has a problem that you can solve for them. You actually turn a customer need into a profit. Everybody see that? Those are two different things. So when you're spending money and you're saying, that money ain't coming home, that money ain't coming home, it may come home in a different way, okay? Now, what is this going to cost us? What if we're not doing these things because of courage, but what if, here's the what if of this, what if it does work and you become a big star? What if the marketing does work? What if the employees allow you to do what you love doing every day? Right? What if your idea turned into millions of dollars? The idea that you spent money on. What if your first employee allows you to 4x your income? What if your new skill set that you paid money to get, by the way, infinitely helps you make more money? And I'm going to get into that skill in just a second. What if 1 out of every 10 opportunities do work? Right? That's the other side of this equation. What if you take this bold move? What if I build one greatness factory and then I can franchise and license those all over the world? But I had to have the first one right. Does that make sense? And that's my worry. If I go cheap on it and I bring somebody in here from Houston and they look at the first one and the first one's cheap, why would they want one in Houston? Everybody see where I'm going with this? So the courage is, yes, we could go cheap. Let's find a builder who'll build at the cheapest price we can, but there's nothing special about it. Or spend the money and do it right so I can replicate it all over the world. Well, that takes courage. Okay? Now, let's say that I want to get into something right here because this is a big thing. If you want to perform at a higher level, okay? Now, let's say that you're performing at a certain frequency, right? And you want to perform at a higher frequency. And let's say you're making X dollars and you would like to make Y dollars, okay? No matter what that is. Let's say you're earning $250,000 a year, okay? And you'd like to move up to $500,000 a year, okay? Now, sometimes this seems very complicated for us. Like, how do we do this, right? Like, if you see a person operating at this level and you want to get to that level, it's like, what's inside the black box? What are you doing that I'm not doing? Like, how many transactions are you going to do this year?
About around 70.
Okay, 70. So let's say Chris does 70 transactions this year, and when he sits down to do his 2020 goals, he says, I'm going to go to 140. Let's just say he says that, right? Now, there's something inside the black box that he's got to figure out, right? There's something in there that somebody's doing 140, right? And that somebody who's doing 140 knows what? They know something he may not know. So I want to show you how to diagnose how to get this lift. It's going to come in one of 4 areas to get this lift. It's going to come in knowledge. That ties into what we're about to talk about. It's going to come in skill. It's going to come in desire. Or it's going to come in confidence or courage. This is where he's going to get a lift in one of these 4 areas. Okay? Now, I want to make it simple for you because Chris is going to tell me, look, I got all the confidence in the world. And he does. Right? I got all the courage in the world, Coach. I feel like I've got the knowledge, okay? Or maybe I don't have the right knowledge to know how to do it. Because if Chris comes to me and says, I got the desire, and you would say you do have the desire, right, Chris? I got the desire, and I got the confidence. Then I start going, what am I missing? What does this agent who's doing 140 deals know that I don't know? Does that make sense? Now, if you spent time with them, now this is going to feed into what I'm about to tell you on courage. If you called the agent who's doing 140 and you said, I want to do 140, how much would it cost me to spend time with you to learn how you did it? And let's say he says or she says $5,000. $5,000, I'll sit down and spend a whole day with you, Chris, and I'll show you exactly how I went from doing 70 to 140. The question then becomes, will he spend the $5,000? Yes, everybody see that? Because somebody knows how to do it. Now the question will be, does he have the courage to go get this? Now, I'm going to come back to this story I told you earlier. 10 years ago, I met Paul Martinelli. You wouldn't know Paul Martinelli because he's not a famous person, but he was responsible for going to John Maxwell and making a pitch to Maxwell. He went to Maxwell and he said, I would like to take your coaching and I would like to certify coaches. I'd like to build the John Maxwell Certification Program, where people will pay $5,000 to be trained by our team. Then they can go out into the market and say they're John Maxwell certified coaches. And I'm going to build it. I'm going to implement it. I'm going to execute it. All I need you to do, John, is show up X number of days per year and be you. And here's how much I want, and here's how much you get. And Maxwell said, as long as we deliver on what we promise to people, then let's go. Okay? Now, 10 years later, they have 30,000 certified coaches. They've done $150 million in that program. They're doing $30 million a year. Guess how many days Maxwell shows up? 3. He comes in and teaches for 3 days. Those coaches get to spend 3 days with him. That's all. Everything else is done by staff. Martinelli handles the whole thing. So 10 years ago, I meet Martinelli at an event, and I'm like, I got to call that dude. I got to call that dude. He knows something because he did it for Ziegler. He did it for Bob Proctor. Now, it took me 10 years to actually pick up the phone and call his office. So this year, I called his office and I said, hey, I'm Coach Burt. You probably don't know who I am, but I would like to spend some time with Mr. Martinelli. How much is it going to cost me? And they said, oh, he would be happy to spend time with you. It'll be $2,200 for 90 minutes. We will not schedule the appointment until it's paid in full, and he only has 2 dates to spend with you. Which one would you like? I said, book it. So last week, I spent 90 minutes with Paul Martinelli, and guess what he told me? Chase, guess what he told me? Step by step, exactly how they did it. He didn't hold anything back. He didn't say you got to spend more money to get it. I asked him question after question after question. What's step 1? What's step 2? What's step 3? What's step 4? He told me, and we recorded the conversation. Right? Now, halfway through the conversation, he starts using the word perhaps. Now, what does that mean in sales when a person starts using the word perhaps? It means there's opportunity. He feels like there's opportunity. So I start the phone conversation as he is in a superior position to me. He's the teacher, and I'm the pupil. Everybody see that? Halfway through the conversation, he starts going, you know what, Coach? I really like you. I've watched your work. John Maxwell has been looking for a young whippersnapper like you. It's got a lot of energy because he's 70 years old. And he said, perhaps we can partner. And we give your content to all 30,000 of our coaches. And you become one of our guest lecturers. And you give your content, Maxwell's content, to your people. And by the end of the conversation, now we're talking about partnership. Everybody see that? Now, let me ask you guys this question. Would I have ever had a chance at partnering with him if I wouldn't have paid the $2,200 to have the conversation? Yes or no? The $2,200 opened the door for him to study me, for us to have an hour-and-a-half conversation, for him to figure out I did know what I was doing and I could be an asset to them. The $2,200 opened the door. So my question is, here's the question. Who out there has this that you need? Will you be willing to go get that information? Now, if you've got an employee, how many of you have an employee that's producing at the exact same level today they were 3 years ago? Raise your hand. Why? Why? Chris, based on what you know now, you can now go back and do what? It's one of these 4 areas. Now, this right here is very critical. When I say skill up, Brandon, what am I saying? When I say you need to level your skills up, the one thing that's holding you back is you don't have the skills you need. Where would a person go get those skills? That's right. They can get coached. Now, I want to teach something. If you got a team, pay attention to this. I am sending Melissa to executive assistant school. So I want to know, what are the top conferences on being an executive assistant in the world? I'm sending Katie to operations school. I'm sending Chelsea to negotiation school. You understand what I'm saying? Like I'm looking for things to send each one of my employees to on how they can skill up. Because if they don't ever get the skills they need, they're not going to get any better. Does everybody understand that? Skills, communication, closing, bringing a person, right? If you don't skill up, then they're not going to get better. So those agents on your team are never going to get better until they do what? Skill up. So I want you to write these 4 things down. When it comes to skilling your people up, you got to have 4 things. I guarantee you we're all deficient in one of these 4 areas. Number 1, you got to have content. That means you got to have curriculum. Okay? Now, when Brandon finishes his book on 0 to 100 million, which he's going to do over the Christmas break, you can see how I put that out in the universe for intention. Here's the deal. When he finishes this book, that book, he should be able to take it to every loan originator that he's coaching in the state of Tennessee, right? Step by step. Say, this is what I did. This is how I went from a high school basketball coach to 100 million. Everybody see that? Now, I'm coming out with a book in a few weeks called Single Digit Millionaire. And it is a book about how to get to a net worth of between $1 and $10 million. Okay? Because you can't get to double digits until you get to what, Dylan? Single digits. And the subtitle is From High School Basketball Coach to Millionaire. And I walk you step by step on how I did it. Because everywhere I go, people ask me the same question. How did you go from being a high school girls basketball coach to doing this? And so I said, I'm just going to sit down and tell you step by step exactly what I did. If you want to do it, you can do it too. Does that make sense? It's just my roadmap on how I did it. Now, if you have people like Chris, you need that roadmap for your people. Roy needs that roadmap for his people. You need a roadmap for your people to say, this is how you're going to do it. So you need content. Content is the scripts. Content is the verbiage. Content is everything you need to grow your people up. If you don't have content, where are they getting their content from? Nowhere, because they're not reading books, and they're not going to seminars, and they're not listening to podcasts. They're not getting any better. So you're trying to figure out, how do we get them better? So you need content. You also need repetition. That's number 2. You also need repetition. How often do you need to be pouring into these people? Every single day. Every single day. We meet at 8:15 and 12:30 every day in my office. We are now role-playing. We are now role-playing at 11:30 and 4:30 every day. So we meet from 8:15 to 9. If I'm in town, I lead the meeting. If not, I give them content. We then go into a selling cycle from 9 to 11, meaning we're doing nothing but selling for 2 straight hours. We then take a break for lunch. We then meet again. Why will we meet a second time? It's right. Get them. What wins did you have this morning? What can I help you with? Who can I help you close? Who's in your red zone? Then we go back to selling from 1 to 3:30. Okay? And then at 4:30, at the end of the day, now they're role playing. And there's only one thing we're role playing right now. Guess what it is? Asking for the business. So the only thing we're working on this week is one question. Which credit card would you like to put this on? That's the only thing I want them playing. I want them practicing it so much when they get on the phone with the person, it's not, can I send the agreement over to you? It's, which credit card would you like to put this on to get you started? Does it take courage to ask that question? Yes. So we're practicing that every day. I want to practice that over and over. Ask me the question, Mr. Burt, which credit card would you like to put this on? Seems like you'd like to get started right now. What would prohibit us from taking action? Which card would you like to put it on? Like, that's role playing. So the third thing you need is role play. And if you're not role playing enough, you don't have a training program. You got an exposure program. And the fourth thing you need is testing. Testing. How do I know if they're getting it or not getting it? Could they sit there at every meeting and tell you they're getting it? Yes or no? Now, we had a mistake the other day in our office, and I started thinking about this, because all the mistakes in my office are created by me. I take total responsibility. If one of my team members screws something up, it ain't their fault. Whose fault is it? It's my fault. You know why? Because they weren't trained properly. When I used to watch Gary Rankin go over football, he would bring all of his players together when they didn't play well, and they would watch film, and all the coaches would be around. And when they made a mistake, he'd ask the kid, he'd say, now why'd you miss that block? And they'd say, well, I missed the block. And he said, no, you missed the block because your offensive line coach didn't teach you how to block correctly. Big offensive line coach sitting over there, get all red-faced, embarrassed. And you know what that offensive line coach would make sure? They didn't ever miss a block again. He blamed the coaches when the players didn't perform. When something happens in my company, it's my fault. Totally. Everybody understand? So we were looking at this thing, and I'm like, well, how many times did we tell them? Oh, we told them to do it right. How many times did you tell them? Once? You should have told them 15 times. Right or wrong? You should have tested them to make sure they understood it. You should have checked their work. Never assume anybody's doing anything they're supposed to be doing. Is that a good way to live? Yes or no? Check it, and recheck it again. I don't care what they tell you. Charlie, if you're selling a house and some vendor tells you they did something, I'd check it, I'd recheck it again. I'd never assume anything, because when you assume, you get in trouble, guys. Somebody ain't doing their job. I can guarantee you that. Somebody somewhere ain't following through like they're supposed to. Okay, so what you got to do is you got to take this concept of testing. I need to test you on this to make sure you understand it. Now, how many of you are missing a component in your training program right now there to skill people up? It's either content, repetition, role play, or testing. Okay, this increases courage. Like when I train you and test you, now you got more courage. Now you're going to close more deals. Okay, all right, let's finish up with a few things. Okay, is it possible for a person to make $30 or $40 million and living in Murfreesboro? Yes or no? Yes. There are people who are earning $30 to $40 million personally living in this city right here. So when you tell me you got to go to some big city or Houston or St. Louis, or you got to go to New York City to make millions of dollars, I can give you examples of people here that over the last 3 to 4 years have made over $100 million in and around this area right here. Everybody with me? So if it can, so the question, sometimes I ride around on my break and I think, now how does that dude making that much money in Murfreesboro? What product is he selling? Who is he selling it to? How much volume are they doing? And what's my version of that? Everybody see that? What's my version of what he's doing? Okay? I may not be selling what he's selling, but he's figured something out that I don't know. So what could I do based on what we talked today? I could call him and say, hey, will you spend some time with me coaching me? Or if you just built some serious wealth, spend some time on coaching me on how to build wealth. What should I be doing with my money? Who should I be talking to? What financial advisor should I have? Who should be handling this for me? What things should I be doing? Like instead of just wondering, like, what's that dude doing? If you got enough courage, you just pick up the phone and say, I'd like to buy your lunch. I'd like to buy you breakfast. I'd like to spend a day with you. A few years ago, I spent the day with Jim Ayers. Jim Ayers founded First Bank. When I spent the day with him, he was worth $600 million. Since then, he went public with First Bank, so he's probably worth, what, $1 billion today? He's probably worth $1 billion today, and he is a country boy from Parsons, Tennessee, that slept in a tent and a sawmill when he was growing up. I mean, I'm telling you, this dude is the American dream. He is the American dream. And I called down to his office one day and said, can I spend a day with you? You don't even have to talk to me. Like, I just want to sit and watch you. What do you do? How does he talk to employees? Who does he work with? So he started his day off by checking on every one of his companies. Every company had a leader, a divisional leader, and that leader had to report to Mr. Ayers the numbers, and he was brutal. And he would ask him hard questions. Now, explain to me why this is happening. Why is our number down 7% here? And why aren't you doing this? And here's what I think you need to do. And he went, there's like 10 different companies, and he was calling each person. That's how he started every day, going through every number of every company. And then he would hold those people accountable. Now, I expect you to do this. Now, I expect you to do this. When we talk tomorrow, you better have done this. But he said it in like this country boy, aw shucks, humble. You understand what I'm saying? It wasn't like bam, bam, bam. It was like, now I need you to do this for me, okay? Now, can you come through for me? Now, when I check back with you tomorrow, let's make sure it's done. Yes, sir. And the way people talk to him, Brandon and Dylan can say, it's out of respect. It's like, yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you. It's not like he's beating me over the head with a 2x4. It's like, I don't want to let this man down. That's what it's like. I do not want to let him down. So what I'm telling you is, will you have the courage to go to these people? How many of you know somebody? He's probably a billionaire in Middle Tennessee somewhere. Right? Ayers is probably one of them. But there's probably 5 billionaires in Middle Tennessee somewhere. How do they think? How do they operate their days? How do they come into the day? Does that make sense? And it may not be.
His whole story is based on courage.
Yeah.
He had the courage to partner with somebody to buy a home, retirement facility and turn that into what is.
That's right.
Because the other person got out.
Yep.
And he wound up just duplicating that over and over and over.
And he bought one bank in Scotts Hill, Tennessee. It's like buying a bank in Woodbury. He bought one bank in Scotts Hill, Tennessee. It's this big. This is how big Scotts Hill is. Now he turned it in. Now they have grown all over the southeast. Now they're all over everywhere. Now the mortgage division is a $5 to $6 billion division. Just that division. 10, 15 years ago, it was a $300,000 division. It was a pitiful little division that nobody paid any attention to. Okay? So the second one is, how many of you watched the Garth Brooks? How many of you watched the Garth Brooks special? Okay, here's the deal. If you haven't watched on A&E over the past couple of weeks, they've been running a documentary about Garth Brooks. And it is an amazing documentary because he is so good And one of the things that was fascinating to me is that Garth Brooks, when he was in Oklahoma, was like a local star. So imagine being in Murfreesboro, playing at all the local bars. Everybody knew who he was. Every night he was at a different bar. People went and saw him. He was making $700 a week playing music in Oklahoma. And so his own fans be like, "Look, if I'm a singer, you guys get together and you say, we're going to send you to Nashville. And we're going to pay for it, because we believe you can be a big star." So his fans got together and said, "We're going to give you enough money to go to Nashville, because you're going to be big time." Gets in his truck in Oklahoma, drives to Nashville, takes one meeting. He goes to the ASCAP building. He's in there talking, "I'm Garth Brooks. I came from Texas. I got all these people in Texas think I can be a big star." And the guy says, "How much money are you making?" He said, "I'm making $700 a week playing at these bars in Oklahoma." And this was back in the 80s or 90s. And the dude looks at him and says, "Well, you need to get back in your truck and drive on back to Oklahoma." And what did he do? He did it. He quit. He stayed in Nashville less than 24 hours the first time he came to Nashville. He literally got in his truck. He had one bad meeting. One dude told him to go back to Oklahoma. He gets in his truck, drives all the way back to Oklahoma. And his wife's like, "What are you doing?" He said, "Nashville's not for us. We're going to stay in Oklahoma, play in these bars, and make a good living." Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's where I'm going with this. So he goes home and sees his dad, and his dad was tough. His mom was a dreamer. His dad was a doer. So the mom was a country music singer. You can be anything. You can do anything you want. The dad would pull him aside and say, "You ain't going to be nothing if you don't work harder than you're working right now, because you ain't working hard enough to be anything." So he went home and he has this tough conversation with his dad. And he wouldn't even say what his dad said to him in the interview. He's like, "He wasn't trying to be mean to me, but man, I don't even want to tell you what he said to me. I suspect it was something like this. Is that all the guts you got? I haven't raised you to be a quitter. You stayed less than 24 hours." Like, he said something really hard to Garth. And he said, what he said to me lit a fire in me. Not even if he meant to or not. He stayed in Oklahoma for 2 more years playing music. And one of his own fans came up to him and said, "I thought you were going to Nashville. Like, I thought you were going to be a big star." And he said, "Well, Nashville's not for me." And the fan said to him, surely you got enough guts to go back and try it again, right? Like, you're not going to stay here and just play in these little bars." And he said that conversation, coupled with his dad conversation, prompted him to get back in his truck and come to Nashville, only to get rejected 7 straight times. 7 people, all the record labels, "Not good enough, ain't going to work, ain't going to play." One dude, one little manager, takes him on, and he pulls over on the side of the road one day and he says, "Garth, you got to quit being scared, man. I don't know when you're going to be big, but you're going to be big. Now, I believe in you." And here's what he said. That one shot of courage from that one dude gave him the courage to keep going. So the next week, he plays at the Bluebird. There's 7 people who are supposed to perform. He was supposed to be number 7. Okay? Record label executives came to see the guy who was in the second spot, but the guy who was in the second spot showed up late. This was supposed to be a big-time dude that everybody came to see, and they went to Garth Brooks and said, "We want you to go in the second spot because the guy ain't here." Now all the record labels get to see Garth perform what? Live. And when they saw him live, the guy from Capitol Records came over to him and said, "We made a mistake. Come see me on Monday." And he signs a deal. Yep. That's right. Yes. And so then he signs a record deal with Capitol Records, and as they say, the rest of the story, right? You see the rest of the story. Now, do you know that he retired at the peak of his career to take 10 years off to raise his kids? How many people, here's what he said, "I didn't even recognize my own kids. I became so famous so fast that I had no days off. Even on my days off, there was a show, there was something, like I didn't even recognize my own kids." And he walked in one day. If you watch the press conference, he's crying, and he says, "I'm retiring." At the peak of his game. How much courage does that take? And he goes back to Oklahoma and raises his kids until they're grown, until they get through high school, and then he comes back to country music. Now, think about the guts and the courage that takes to quit at the peak for that reason. Everybody see that? And how many artists could pull that off, by the way? How many artists could take off 10 years and come back and still sell out stadiums? Most people move on to somebody else, right or wrong. So I'm telling you this to give you a little shot of courage as we leave here today, because are you going to be the first Garth Brooks that quits in the first meeting? Or are you going to be the second Garth Brooks? right? Which courage level do you have when you leave here today? And maybe I've encouraged you to make a phone call. Maybe I've encouraged you to reach out to a person you need to be learning from. Maybe I've encouraged you to expand your business and hire an employee. Maybe I've encouraged you to go out and call on people you're scared to call on. You just never know until you do what? Do it. I've had cell phone numbers of people in that phone right there that, man, I'm like, I need to call that dude today. I need to call that dude today. And do you know when you spend time with the top people in the world, guess what you figure out? When you really start doing things with the top people in the world, what do you figure out?
They have a ton of time.
Say again?
They have a ton of time.
They got a ton of time, number one. They're not near as scary. And here's the deal. Many times, you are as good as them. And they're willing to help you. They do not have scarcity mindsets. It's not like, well, I ain't going to tell you what I'm doing. When I spend time now with these big-time people, whether it be Milet or Cardone or Tim Story, who I'm going on tour with next year, or Tim Grover, who was Jordan's coach, listen, they're just regular dudes, man. And sometimes they're calling me. They're now calling me, going, man, you're good at this, man. You're much better at this than I am. Right? Like you're on equal playing field with them. You just don't believe it. Maybe the only thing they got is more courage than you. They don't have more talent than you, right? When you get around the big top real estate agents in the country, they're not a bit better than you. So the point is, when you get around them, you figure this out. You're like, man, that dude ain't any smarter than I am. You may be smarter than that dude, but he's doing something. He's got some courage somewhere that you don't have, okay? Now, there's something I'm doing next week that I'd love for you to spend the day with me at the lodge, and let me tell you why. Have you ever felt like a level 10 person stuck in a level 2 opportunity? Level 10 person, you're a big time person, but for some reason, you're stuck in a level 2, 3, 4 opportunity. When I was a high school basketball coach, and Brandon was too, I felt like I was a level 10 dude, stuck in a level 3 opportunity. Does that make sense? Now, what I mean by that, I couldn't make more than $60,000 a year. It didn't matter how much I worked. Didn't matter how many games I won. Like I was this dude that had all this potential, but I didn't have the vehicle, right? And so what I'm going to do that day is we're going to strategically map out your 2020. And you're going to walk out of there with a plan for your whole 2020. What are your biggest opportunities? Where can you earn the most income? What do you want to do next year? Okay? Like there's big level 10 opportunities you don't see. Now, why can't we see our level 10 opportunities? That's right. That's right. We're over here doing this. Like I'll catch myself during the day working on a $10, selling something for $10. I mean, literally. Like I'm sitting here talking to somebody over spending $10 when I should be talking about somebody who wants to spend $10,000 a month. Does that make sense? We all get caught up in this, and we get sucked into this vacuum of doing these little bitty things during the day when we ought to step back and go, what's my biggest opportunities for next year? Who do I need to be partnered with? What events do I need to be doing? So December 12th, that's next Thursday, I'm doing a full day. It's a strategic planning day. You will walk out of there with a plan for your 2020. It's very cost effective. I think we lowered the price to $140, $150, something like that. But it's a full day of me coaching you on your 2020. I'm going to put you through the same exercises I'm going through. Same things I've been coached on. What's my biggest opportunities? Who will write us the biggest check? Where do we need to be spending our time and energy? What are we going to quit doing? Because there's a lot of things we're going to quit doing. I'm calling it the level 10 opportunity. Okay? That's what it is. Now, what else do we have? A couple of things we have coming up. Monster Growth Boot Camp. And I want to kind of project something. This year, the path I took was to break my system up into parts and teach it in days. Like we teach the EOS, then we move to the selling system, then we move to follow-up. In 2020, what I'm going to do is teach the whole system, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do boot camps, meaning we at the lodge 2 days, and we're going to go through the whole system. Okay? Because a lot of people like learning something in an immersive experience, meaning I want to go learn the whole system. Then I want to go back and execute on the system. So if you got a team of people and they need a selling system, if you want them to know the whole system, it's 5 parts: EOS, selling system, follow-up, extraction of referrals, person of interest. And it will all be into one 2-day workshop. Everybody with me? And we expect to get, so I'm having a lot of people sign up that has teams, or they're bringing their top 3 salespeople, or they're bringing their managers because they want to learn the system of growth. If you're in Monster Producer, you get a discount. Another thing we're doing next year, which is opposite of what we did this year, is this year we would start at a high price and bring the pricing down closer to the event. We're actually reversing that in 2020. So when I release something, and I say I'm doing this retreat or this event, I will release it at the lowest price, and then it will go up as it gets closer to the event. So I don't want you thinking, oh, as it gets closer, he's going to bring that price down. In 2020, I ain't bringing it down. It's going to start, and I'm going to say this is the lowest it's going to get, like an airplane flight. You get closer to the event, it's going to go up. The seat's going to get more expensive, okay? So just know that. Don't think I'm going to lower the prices in 2020 because I'm taking a different path, okay? So if you're interested in that, and then I really think this is going to be a cool thing. We're going to do this at our house in Seaside. I want you to think, I always think about the movie Couples Retreat. Well, people always ask me, like, are we going to be doing marriage counseling and therapy? I'm like, I'm not a licensed therapist. Okay, and I do not have it all together, and neither does my wife. But what we have figured out is how to build an intentionally congruent life, where we're using her talents in the business, my talents in the business. You understand what I'm saying? So what we do at these retreats is it's kind of like a vacation mixed with, we just do some coaching sessions. She works through the book, Living with a Monster. You see what I'm saying? She works through what it's like living with an obsessed person. How does she deal with it? How does she handle it? But everybody that's ever gone on these retreats, Eric went on one last year and said it was transformational. Everybody that goes on these couples retreats with us, man, just think, man, it's a great experience. So if you're interested in that, we will only have 6 or 7 spots, 6 or 7 bedrooms. We will stay at our house in Seaside. I think it's $3,000 per couple right now. So if you're interested in going on that, then please, and we'll sell that out. Trust me. With only 6 bedrooms to sell, we will sell that out very quickly. So if you're interested, April 23rd through the 26th, okay? Say again? I'll be a new dad in June of next year. Yep, it'll be June of next year. So the closer we get, and people's asking me, how's it going? And, you know, hey, some days it's rough, boys. I'm just going to tell you. I just smile and say, yes, ma'am, whatever you need, right? Whatever you need, I'll get it. That's all I say. That's the period I'm in right now, okay? So thank you for coming this morning. If you need anything, if you want to take action on the level 10, Lakin and Eric can help you, or if you need anything else, they can help you take action, okay? God bless you. Have a great Friday.